Hi everyone, Tea Drinker here, and today I'm reacting to Akira. This is technically a film I've seen before, but it was almost 10 years ago, so outside of the iconic motorcycle sequence and tiny bits and pieces of the climax, I genuinely remember nothing about this movie. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is my first time to watch Akira. If you'd like to see the full reaction to this as well as every other film I've done on the channel thus far, gain early access to my next reaction, and vote on a monthly community film, you can do all that for just $1 a month by following the link to my Patreon in the description down below. I'm also going to leave a link to a fantastic video essay talking about the song during the opening motorcycle sequence to this movie. I'm shooting this directly after shooting my reaction to Grave of the Fireflies, so a film about a bomb in Japan is very, very apt. And this was also made in 1988. Jesus, talk about a great year for Japanese animated cinema. I've seen this film referenced countless times through various video essays throughout YouTube about Japanese cinema, so I am aware of the importance of Akira in the cinematic canon. I'm just not exactly sure what the plot is. Oh, wow. Just a big bold letters is fantastic. Love all that production design. Riots happening all over the country. It's a great way of depicting the social malaise. So I think I remember he is a motorcyclist. I remember there's another character called Kaneda as well. Tetsuo. Yosh, ikuso! Classic anime line. Oh, there's that music coming in. Oh, I've seen this opening sequence a bunch of times. And it's just electric. I can 100% understand why they say this is the godfather of Japanese anime. Oh, it's like my 5th time watching this opening sequence and I still get chills. Just the atmosphere that's presented through the music, the sound design, all these visuals. Look at his character design as well, the black dude with the face. That's fantastic. Ooh. There's him gone. Oh. The sound of the tires screeching. Oh, is our slide coming up? Yes! Oh, and I've seen, like, videos of that replicated so many times as well. Okay, so past this point, I've no idea what's happening in the movie. I know one of them turns into, like, a big monster at the end. That's all I remember. Spoilers if you're watching along with me, but I assume if you're watching this at all, you've seen Akira already. For what it's worth, I have a vague memory of the plot being very, very complex, so anything could happen. He does not look human. All the little attention to detail in every single frame is just insane. I'm curious to see how much of this was digital versus hand-painted cells. Very much reminds me a little bit of Children of Men in the way civil unrest is a backdrop to the story. So this is a character we haven't seen before. Who is this guy? Whoa! Has he got a death wish? Whoa! That is not a kid. Whatever it is not a kid. Who are you? Was that the girl? Well, that's him gone. Whoa! Things are popping off, to say the least. Okay is her name. Okay, but I don't think it's fantasy. I think it's some sort of technology thing, right? This is insane, this movie. Just the aesthetics are— oh my god! The aesthetics are insane. And this is Tetsuo, I think? Wow, they're really throwing us into the bowels of hell with this opening sequence. And all this tribal music acting as the background is just phenomenal. From what I understand as well, the manga to this film is very, very long and complex, so I'm interested to see what's in there as well. Whoa! Did you see on his hand it said 26? So he is an experiment. Right, so short hair is Tetsuo and then long hair is Canada, I think. Is this the police? Oh no, it's their friend. Is that the police? Is that the guy in the orb we saw a second ago? Yeah. So it's some sort of experiment. We can't survive outside. Yeah, of course you are. The dude in the background, hands straight up. He ain't playing. Oh, the sound of that thunk. Interesting, a biker gang end up running into a top secret lab experiment? A lab experiment who was trying to run away, no less. Oh, very interesting how slow paced this is so far. They're really taking their time to establish the world, and they're doing such a great job of it through the aesthetic. That's great. Essentially, the worst is over. She cleared the hump. Yeah, this is very much giving me Children of Men vibes. And that's the girl. Whoa! No, 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 no! Don't do that, don't do that. Oh, God, that's brutal. School is still going on amidst everything happening in society. I love the expressions that are happening. Yeah, of course he wasn't helping her out of the kindness of his heart. Come on. Yeah, literally. I'm curious to see how much of this film would have been based on the actual events of what happens in these kind of conditions. The conditions being when there is so much civil unrest within a developed nation. What's happening here? So whatever is happening here is also seemingly coming to a head. Right, so if they have Tetsuo's body, are they going to try to, like, change him? Oh, I remember how much of this influenced the Kanye West video. Akira. That music going on in the background is absolutely insane. Akira's growth pattern. So are they trying to create a superhuman? Or maybe there already is a superhuman that they're trying to crack the code on. Hmm. So interesting, are people born with this type of power, or does it all come through scientific intervention? Under 15. Yeah, things are truly desperate. Just a complete another social decay that's happening in this environment is fascinating. All the blood coming out. Ano baka. God, just look at all this detail in the background of every single shot. It's fantastic. Just the world building and sense of atmosphere this film is done incredibly well. Okay, there he is. God, this has just got to be one of the coolest looking anime films I've ever seen. I'm assuming even with a scene like that there definitely is stuff they've cut out of the manga. Oh! Okay, at least it's just Tetsuo. At least it's someone he recognizes. Oh, not great. Are these the clown boys back for revenge? Whoa! Kaori-san. That was a great transition. This soundtrack is absolutely insane. Oh. Ew, don't do that. Oh, Jesus. Christ, that's bad. They're gonna trash the bike. I'm pretty sure I saw that type of helmet in a My Chemical Romance music video as well. I'm not surprised if this film has a huge cultural influence. Wow, that's a good shot. This is truly just such a ruthless world. Oh, so I take it this is the inciting incident from... Talk about timing. Whoa. Is this foreshadowing? Or is it a memory that he had from a previous life? If somebody else's soul has been put back into him. Well, not their soul, but their, like, mind. It's just so interesting to see these young teenagers thrown into the fray of something that is clearly very political. I wonder to what extent are our boys going to try to save Canada now. Sorry, save Tetsuo now. Toss the fish back. Is it another riot? Suicide bombing? Wow. Whoa! Holy shit. Like, there's just gotta be so much distrust of the powers that be in this kind of environment. Okay, what's gonna who is this character? What's going on here? I'm very, very curious. Are they trying to infiltrate the scientist's experiment? Just danger lurking around every corner, literally. Oh! Whoa, that blood effect was really something. So now it's up for the two of them to save one another. God, this style of animation is fantastic. Just all the details on their face. Okay, what's going on here? Reliving memories. Why? Kaneda and Tetsuo playing with one another. This being some sort of nightmare. So it's like his memories are being changed? It has to be that. Yeah, like his very being is falling apart, literally. So whatever it is that they're doing to change him from the inside is changing him permanently. Another old person in a child's body. 25. Are they trying to cure mortality? Is that what they're trying to do? Akira. Precognitive power. To act instead of think. That's a premonition. So Akira must have been some sort of harbinger of great power that they're trying to replicate. Not dissimilar to the likes of Mew and Mewtwo in the Pokemon series. Yeah, okay, some sort of superhuman. Oh, that's a phenomenal shot. Are you kidding? That's interesting that we're getting a bit more fleshing out of his character. And again, that dynamic of how the scientists and the soldiers view the other as being ignorant fools. So this has to be the main thing where they're trying to create Akira? Or I'm thinking maybe this is where the secret formula to Akira is kept, seeing as it's all frozen. Is this where they're keeping, like, the body of Akira? That foreboding drum beat that comes in is so strong. He really is a 14-year-old boy. There's Ryu. 俺ですか? Just left for dead. Right, so they're trying to dismantle the entire operation. Right. Neo Tokyo. Again, just depravity that is rampant the whole way through this city. Interesting. So the public are aware of Akira, and that's presumably where so much of the problems began. The existence of Akira clearly symbolizing hope for some, total destruction for others. Amidst everything, amidst all the chaos, the same boring arguments keep happening. There's very much an anti-nuclear arms message with the film. It's like a mix of elements of Children of Men mixed with Watchmen, which is so interesting. Oh, that sound and that visual. I do have a memory of him leaving the hospital, but I don't think it's going to be this. Whoa. He's telekinetic? Does the bear mean something? Sneaking their way in. Oh, Tetsuo's not having a good time. No, he is not. That's trippy, and I'm assuming that's stuff that was part of his childhood? The toys? That's crazy. Whoa. His inner psyche is really just deteriorating in such an explosive manner. That is terrifying. I can only imagine what it must be like to have schizophrenia or any sort of serious mental health issue like that. Yeah, I was thinking it was milk, but I wasn't sure. Ugh! Ugh, is that supposed to symbolize, like, mother's milk or something like that? That's terrifying. Interesting. It's so interesting how all these things are working their way into his psyche. Oh, so did he shatter all those windows with his telekinesis? That looks so sore. Oh, I definitely remember this from the Kanye video. Is he going to attack them with his head ability? Yep. Whoa! The hands falling as well. This is a much more action-oriented film than I remember. Not to say that it's necessarily an action movie, it's just, you know what I mean, more action than I thought. Oh! Here's a spotted. It's a miracle that they've even survived this long. I love how we get this juxtaposition of moments with music and moments without music. Like now. Whoa, that's crazy. Just all the... Whoa, that shot was insane. The push in on her face was just incredible. They are going ham with this soundtrack. It's nuts. Like, there's such a Blade Runner influence here, but it's still just so organic feeling. So clearly, whatever it is you're trying to do with Tetsuo, it's after working a bit too well. That music. That was like something from the 30s. That's nuts. And it's so thematically relevant, isn't it? Having the government infiltrate the mind of the youth. The complete perversion of a youth's mind for the sake of creating and maintaining power for the country. In a very different manner of doing it, it's creating an anti-war message similar to Grave of the Fireflies. I mean, you literally see all these relics of childhood being destroyed physically. So was Akira some child that they're trying to replicate again? Like Akira was this kid born years ago who they're trying to recreate through the lab? Wait, was she talking through Kei there? Okay, so he remembers him from the crash, but what else? All of it just completely hitting the fan now. Yeah, well, they're obviously not going to listen to you anymore. So now we have the premonition of total destruction. Oh, it's going to go to his head now, isn't it? Literally. So Akira must be alive in some form, and he's connected to them telepathically. All these threads coming and connecting now. It's crazy. Yeah, the film is definitely a lot more action set-piece oriented than I thought it was going to be. So I take it this is our midpoint now. So they found Tetsuo, but Tetsuo isn't the Tetsuo they used to know anymore. There's our midpoint. There's our soundtrack again. So I assume Akira is under some sort of cryostasis, given that we saw how freezing cold the environment was. So it's very much similar to a monster movie in that kind of way. That's very interesting, the blending of genres. It's interesting you could define this film as a sci-fi monster film in a way. But monster movie in the very Japanese sense of the word. Like Godzilla is a monster movie, but of course it's so much more than that. Oh? Did you recognize her? Interesting. Yeah, and now this is all coming to a head for these guys too. Whoa, they're going this far. Yeah. Just such a drastic change. I love that shot of his reflection in the surface. Wonder how he's gonna react to that. Oh god. What's he gonna see? Yep. As can be expected. That's creepy. That's so creepy. Seeing how much he's just utterly changed in this amount of time. It's very much giving a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde vibe here. Like I said, I'm so interested in seeing how much of the world is described in the manga. There goes our music again. Yeah, are we going to get that exposition? What's going on? And now superhumans. So it's a harnessing of biological energy. Oh, interesting. So in a way it's a bit fantastical or spiritual. Ancient memories. That's very, very fascinating. How the likes of ancient memories are juxtaposed with the technological progress, which has been such an overlying theme. So that's it pretty much confirmed. Akira represents society's need for control and power. Or more appropriately, it shows civilization's attempt of acquisition of that power. Yeah, that's also something I was interested about. To what degree are they able to control her? The idea of not only there being a superhuman, but a superhuman actively on the loose is such a brilliant plot point. What's he doing? Good, he jumped off. With this being the type of movie it is, I had no idea what to expect there. What's happening here? So clearly she's linked with them, I'm just so curious about it all. The fact that she's literally walking on water and then disappearing. Great, all the politics happening amidst everything. But I suppose that's what makes it such a strong anti-war movie in a way, right? The fact that the film is portraying not just the futility, but the permanency of politics amidst everything else that's happening. Whoa! I wasn't expecting him to go like that. I mean, he's not dead yet, but still. The film is just doing such a good job at depicting the end times. I mean, just look at what's happening here, literally. It's like the devil is walking towards them. I have a vague memory of this. I think I have a vague memory of like a big wall of explosion around him. Yeah, that's what I was about to say, how all this is tied in with the religious aspect. I'm very curious to see how much of this would have been inspired by Watchmen. Like in Watchmen, what the character of Ozymandias would have represented next to Tetsuo in this movie. Him surviving just long enough to see God appear. This is insane. Absolutely insane. I remember that shot. Presumably he's going to try to reason with him, and then they fight, but I don't actually remember what happens next. Give yourselves into the flame and you will all be reborn again. Purification through the flames. That's crazy. I can only imagine the amount of work that went into creating a film like this. Especially during a time where they would have been limited on digital animation. Oh, he's going directly for the stadium. I forgot about that as a plot point. Presumably to gain control of the body of the original Akira for more power. That's terrifying. Oh, I thought it was going to be Canada for a second. Her being the voice of the children. And then his character arc acting as a microcosm for a society itself. The snake eating its own tail. God, I love all the expressions in this movie. The way they're animated is just so fantastic. Oh, I'm presuming there was some sort of 3D digital animation assisting that. If that wasn't assisted, then that is absolutely mind-blowing. He's truly become a god now. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Yeah, I have no memory of this at all. This is just phenomenal. This has got to be like one of the biggest films I've ever seen just in terms of scale. It's insane. What is Canada going to do to stop him? Has she... Can he open it? previous test subjects. If one of the kids is 26, are these the others? Oh, that's giving me Attack on Titan vibes. This is so interesting. This entire story. Is this Canada coming now to make a last-ditch attempt to reason with them? He's truly gone past the point of no return. Yeah. His mind and his memories just completely warped. What's gonna happen when they break? That particular song of the soundtrack with the gasping is just so eerie sounding. Just so eerie and tribal sounding. What's gonna happen now? The juvenility of Canada's mind frame is just so interesting here. Because of then how that reinforces the idea that Tetsuo is a child, but now also a god. Oh, very interesting. And of course how all this comes full circle with what we saw in the opening images of the movie. Wow! Okay, they did something. Literally ascending to the heavens. What the hell is gonna happen here? They're all, oh my god, they're all dropping. Just jump on, you'll figure that out later. This is nuts. So, like, with Tetsuo being in a position he's in now, what can our guys possibly do? Oh, that's... oh my god! That view. I was just about to say how the music reminds me of Ghost in the Shell, and then that shot happened. This film is just impeccable, honestly. What a shot. The Dark Knight used that shot. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I'm glad you think it's magnificent, because we're all probably going to die. Yep, and that's where it all begins, really. The never-ending quest for future knowledge to save humanity, and of course humanity is then killed as a result. Meanwhile, the adherence to militaristic attitudes trying to save humanity also ends up hurting it. Oh, something's come back to me now. Tetsuo becoming a big giant monster. I've just remembered that now. But I've absolutely no idea what's going to happen past that point at all. What a shot. Like an actual throne for him, it's just... Again, the transhumanism aspect that would have been explored in Ghost of the Shell happening here as well. His literal combination with the world surrounding him. It's just literally a case of it just escalates and escalates and escalates and escalates. Tetsuo being a symbol for the destruction of man itself, it's just absolutely fascinating. We got that premonition at the beginning of him vomiting the guts, and now it's happening. Oh, this animation is insane. The fact that all of this would have to have been drawn by hand is just insanity. I don't know how many times I've used the word insane in this reaction so far, but it has not been enough. What can they possibly do? She said that the future could be one of many, but what exactly can they actually just do practically? And here he is now, completely lost control. That is nuts. Holy shit. Oh, it's gonna be a baby. The representation of the next stage of man being done through the visual of a baby. It just instantly reminds me of one of my favorite movies, 2001: Space Odyssey. And don't worry if you haven't seen it, that's not a spoiler. Oh my god. Man, Kaori did not have a good time in this movie. I really thought Canada was gonna die right there. This is insane. Gotta love that animation. And I wonder if they had to use so much orange in that sequence because they weren't allowed to use red for blood. What happens now? I love that use of silence. Do they meet Akira now? There we go. What's happening to them? She did her best to save him. Holy shit. The reverse birth. What happens now? It's such a religious movie, it's unbelievable. I have no memory of any of this happening at all. That's... what an incredible shot. Truly. Yeah, so I don't know whether or not when this came out in relation to Watchmen, but there's a clear link there. And she's there as well? How much of these memories are real or alterations, I'm wondering. Yeah, so dreams and memories. She's getting their memories as well. All of them being linked through the memories. That's so fascinating. So they're looking for total destruction of all of them? Yo, this film has gone so trippy. Again, not in any way whatsoever dissimilar to 2001: The Space Odyssey. Like, this literally looks like the Stargate sequence. Just nuts. Just absolutely nuts. Like, that eternal link between Canada and Tetsuo of God and man in and of itself is just mind-blowing. The birth of the universe. This has got to be one of the deepest sci-fi films I've ever seen. I'm aware that so much of this reaction is just me looking like this, but like, what else is there to do? Is it entrusted to Canada now? What a shot.
呼んでくれただろ聞こえたぜ行っちまったあの三人もアキラも
Only for them to return at a later point.
鉄夫はどうした死んだのかどうかなきっと
We're gonna see them again? Is that just the son? More military firepower? Surely not. The idea that's just a beginning. Literally the Stargate sequence from 2001. I got a chill. Oh, as soon as the music came in, I got a chill. That was insane. I've heard this music so many times over the years, and hearing it in the context of the ending is just phenomenal. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I went into that thinking that I was going to be getting the Godfather of anime, and ended up getting the 2001 A Space Odyssey of anime. And if you were taking a shot every time I said insane, I really hope you're enjoying watching the rest of this video in the hospital. I want to thank you so much for everyone who has watched the reaction to this mind-blowing experience, and I'm so glad that I waited so long between my initial viewing 8 to 9 years ago to watching it now, because I'm going into it essentially watching it for the very first time, and that is one of the most enjoyable films I've watched in a very, very long time. Even knowing that I was going to enjoy the movie as much as I was going to did not stop me from being just completely immersed in it, especially the second half of the movie. Everything from the midpoint with Tetsuo gaining power and having that switch in his mind occur, and it essentially becoming this sci-fi monster movie hybrid, and then in the final 20 minutes doing this huge existential philosophical set piece was just out of this world. Completely out of this world. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this reaction. I had the mic sensitivity going up and down the whole way through, so hopefully you're able to hear this okay. And here is the review. Akira is a 1988 Japanese cyberpunk action film directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. Nailed it. That definitely didn't take me like 5 takes to get correctly or anything like that, I swear. Okay, so it's been about an hour since I've watched the film, and the film takes place in this Neo-Tokyo landscape 30 years after a huge nuclear annihilation has just completely altered the lives and just entire civilization of Tokyo, and one can also assume the greater Japan area. We understand that there are biker gangs, one of which is a member of one of them is Tetsuo, who ends up developing telekinetic powers, and the other, Kaneda, is maintained in his human form, but then tries to save Tetsuo from the power that is existing within him. There's a lot to say about the film with regards to the plot, but I suppose with something as seminal as this, I spent about an hour doing a little bit of research on it. I watched one video breaking it down. It's actually a video I'm going to link in the description. It's a fantastic video by Cinematography, in which he put together his list of the top 30 greatest films of all time. So I rewatched the section, speaking of Akira, that I skimmed through because I hadn't really seen the film at that point and I didn't want it spoiled for myself. But from rewatching it, I think he does a great job, a great general overview as to what made the film so groundbreaking for the time. To speak a bit on that, Katsuhiro Otomo, who's the director of the film, was also the original manga creator for this, and the manga continued on for another 2 years after the end of the film itself. So much of cinema seems to have been influenced by this. If you go onto the page, there's just so many movies listed under them, and I think throughout the reaction itself, I did notice 2 or 3 times there was something very subtle reference outside of the iconic motorbike slide shot, which I've seen compilation videos on YouTube that really seem to have a huge cultural footprint. But what I think, to me, just kind of stands out the most about this film, which is coming up to being 40 years old, is the atmosphere to it, the atmosphere that is maintained through the aesthetic. The soundtrack is just unbelievable in the sense of all the different instrumentation that's being used, which again is referenced in the video I talked about at the beginning of the reaction, which I will link in the description as well. You're getting this blend of musical genres that date back hundreds of years, and as being juxtaposed by this futuristic setting, it really creates that kind of uncanny valley feeling that you might see in something along the likes of the Fallout series, which has the high tech but culturally is still set in the 30s, which is very, very interesting. So is my audio still recording actually? Yeah, audio still recording. Just making sure. So for something like Akira, in which there is these depiction of the total chaos and societal malaise and just societal death, nearly, of the Neo-Tokyo area, mixed with all the high tech in which not only do we have really cool motorbikes, we also have the technology to create gods, essentially, and that is what led to our downfall. A lot of that is something that I would have spoken about in the reaction itself, but I suppose just to reiterate, we have so many of the human characters who are longing for technological progress and longing to seek the answers that only a god could see, in which the world is burning around them. And it seems to be something that is just like you get these shots of the religious affiliates who are talking about being cleansed by fire, the open welcoming of death in a way. There's such an anti-war message behind that, but also it's very interesting that it makes an argument of technology being the death of humanity in a way that's beyond just what's talked about in the transhumanism movement portrayed in Ghost in the Shell, which would have come a number of years after this. Instead, it seems to have, at the very least, a cynical view towards humans clinging on to technology as a means to their salvation. I think that the film does a very good job in having young people be so much of the center of a story such as this, so we can really see through their perspective the futility of the adults' actions and their general discontent with all forms of authority. Whether or not the initial nuclear annihilation that would have taken place in 1988 within the film, that then spawned on the 30 years later chaos that the film takes place in, whether or not that initial explosion and annihilation had actually been caused by Akira or instead had been caused by run-of-the-mill nuclear warfare from the Americans or from anyone else for that matter, it doesn't really take that much away from it. That kind of detail almost seems like a bit of an afterthought, and I think it's very clever how they did that opening to be as minimal as they could in order to illustrate that, well, this is something that could have happened regardless of whether or not we intervened to begin with. I think that the overall plot can be questioned a number of different ways. We do get the very clear implication that Akira, the original Akira that everything is based upon, was a science experiment gone awry. That it wasn't just a case of Japan trying to seek more power, it was them actively trying to seek more knowledge. That if science had broken through to the point that we're able to see something that exists within the greater material world itself, some sort of power that could be harnessed, that we have the ability to not only be telekinetic and be an ESP, but also to go one step further and to create entire universes. We then see, well, how much more plain could be put. We have the power to create a universe, and here we are destroying our own. So, for the ending of this film to see Tetsuo then step in, to then progress into a higher state of being, it's very interesting then to kind of contemplate what kind of ending message are the artists going for there. Are they simply trying to suggest that it is through the knowledge itself that is it through this higher state of knowledge that Tetsuo is able to achieve this utter sense of peace? I don't think it could be that simple because, of course, we get the other ESPers, the young children who go out of their way to save Canada. But I think that small level of humanity isn't necessarily enough to suggest that everything they're working for, everything that they're adhering to, is a positive for humanity. That's something that I'm not really sure the film is trying to give a clear answer to either way. Maybe someone listening to this review who has read the manga, or maybe they've seen the film multiple times, they could be picking up on something that I'm not picking up on. If you think that the film is going for anything in particular, do go ahead and tell me. I haven't looked up any theories online, like on Reddit or Ask ChatGPT or anything like that. This is just, I looked up the Wikipedia page for this, that one small snippet of a video, and that's it. I just wanted a general vibe as to what the critical reception has been for this film. I haven't looked up any of my own theories. I am more so responding to the themes that are illustrated, which is, again, the humans' fascination with technological progress and, in of itself, existential progress, and how both of those things end up collapsing on top of civilization, ultimately. I mentioned within the reaction that, with regards to genre, it's something that I would describe as the first half of being sci-fi and then the second half just full-blown monster movie. And I think that we're one to interpret this film as being not necessarily anti-technology, but anti-worship of technology, then the film does pretty much as good of a job as it possibly can. It literally leads to a second annihilation within a 30-year period. The cycle repeats itself all over again. They couldn't be more clear with that kind of message, if that is the particular one they are indeed trying to go for. I think it's just done expertly well. There isn't a huge amount else that I have to say about this film that I think I haven't already illustrated within the reaction itself. Just everything about the mise-en-scène. With regards to the cinematography, I looked up the fact that this was produced by a conglomerate of 7 different companies. It was at the time one of the most expensive anime films to have ever been created. It was one of the biggest causes of anime just exploding in the West as a result, and the original manga being one of the very first manga to ever be released entirely translated into English in the West. All of these things do clearly seem to allow Akira to stand as one of the most important anime films in the cinematic canon. And I think it's just great for me, as who is essentially a first-time watcher of Akira, to understand that not only can I appreciate the historical significance of this film, the film itself just completely holds up. I don't really have a huge amount to criticize about it, and maybe I would have appreciated a little bit more backstory to the ESPers with their storyline. It can kind of feel, I do truly appreciate the fact that they took the less is more approach, but sometimes you're doing so little to the point that the audience can be apathetic, and I don't think that fully happened. I think that for me, 90% of the way, I was totally on board with that being the approach to storytelling, and that being the approach to how much they wanted to prioritize the action and the set pieces and the implication of depth, rather than actually just giving you the depth in and of itself and holding your hand. That's how I was 90% of the way. I would say maybe 10% of the way, I would say that the film could have certainly gained from an additional 10 to 15 minutes of, maybe not even 15 minutes, just maybe 10 very solid minutes of exposition of the background for the Yeaspers and what is exactly going to happen next with them, just kind of sprinkled throughout the story. It does kind of feel like, for as much as I do bring up 2001 Space Odyssey as a compliment, it does kind of feel like, here's one elongated monster sequence. Oh, and now here in the last 10 minutes, we're just going to wrap up all that very serious existential metaphysical questions that have been underlying everything. Again, this isn't necessarily a criticism, because I think if that's what they were absolutely going for, then kudos to them. They were certainly very deliberate in what they were doing, so I can't say at all that they weren't in any way aware of it. I'm just saying that for me as a moviegoer, how I responded to it, 90% of the way I was there. And look, for me to be 90% of the way there on a production that is this huge, on a film that was so seminal and so groundbreaking and in many ways quite literally left the foundation for many films to come 40 years later, and it still absolutely kicks ass, then I cannot criticize this at all. Nonetheless, I'm sure there are many people who are interested not only in Japanese animation, but also just Japanese cinema in general, who might be able to explain the depth not only of the story but of the cultural influence of this film itself in ways that would make my head spin. I'm not going to argue with them, but I very much would like to hear what they have to say. Overall, I think that is pretty much what I have to say. I remember the motorcycle sequence most because I have rewatched it several times over the last few years. There's one fan made music video that I really like that implicates influences. No, not influences. What's the word I'm looking for? Not implicates. Oh my god! Do you know when there's a word on the top of your tongue? Anyway, there's a music video that utilizes the imagery from that motorcycle sequence to a song by one of my favorite bands. Again, I'll link that into the description. I'll leave those 3 links for you there. I think that now having fully seen the film in a way that I can retain it in a manner that I'm mature enough to really absorb it and to interact with it, for me to now finally saying I've seen Akira has just made me so incredibly happy. I'd be very interested in watching more classic anime, classic Japanese cinema, classic Eastern films as well. I'm unsure exactly what direction this channel is going to go, what is going to be like the main thing I watch. It seems to be film for the time being. Whether or not I'll do more TV shows down the line, it's always a possibility. Everything's a possibility. This is the joy of having a brand new YouTube channel. I have lots of time to experiment. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to thank you so much for checking out the reaction and then this subsequent review. I had an absolute blast watching this. I watched this alongside Grave of the Fireflies, both of them back to back today. This is the first reaction that I've had planned to have part as my early access, which you very well could be watching now, having subscribed for just $1 a month. And if that is you, I want to thank you so much for your support. It very much is my dream to turn what I'm doing here into a full-time job. However many months or years that's going to be until I have the revenue from the Patreon to back that up, I don't know. But for now, I'm really, really enjoying it. And again, thank you so much for all of your support up till this point in time. Thanks for watching.